It is the Locked On Grizzlies NBA trade deadline primer. Jaren Jackson Jr. is already out. Is Ja Morant next? Could Santi Aldama, Ty Jerome, somebody else be part of the fire sale? No to Michael Cole with me on this episode of the show, but I do have the next best thing. Matt Moore at HP Basketball himself. I promise he's not going to yell about the Jaren trade too long. It's going to be a heck of an episode. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to
I'm
this
so
episode.
mad.
Oh, dang it, Matt. I said you wouldn't yell that much, and you did it right at the beginning.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. I'm Joe Mullinax, your host for this episode of the show, and my guest co-host is Matt Moore at HP Basketball on X. If you don't follow him, I always give Matt the shout out. You know, back when I was first starting out on my Grizzlies journey, Matt was one of the first national folks that covered the NBA that gave my work some shine. If you don't know Matt at HP Basketball, he's an NBA writer for Action Network HQ. I'm a big fan of Action Network HQ. I don't think I've told you that yet, Matt, but I have the app. He's a podcast host over on Action Network, Locked On NBA, Locked On Nuggets. He writes sometimes. He's also a part-time maniac, and I think he's going to lean into that here in a moment on this special episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts. We're proud members of the #1 sports podcast network out there. Throw the ones up for the Locked On Sports Podcast Network reign of terror or triumph, however you want to see it called. Make us a part of your everyday Memphis Grizzlies media, NBA content consumption, and you will be a better fan for it. DeMichael Cole is there on the ground in Sacramento. He'll have all sorts of tidbits that he'll be sharing throughout the next few days as he travels with the team during this very busy time for the franchise. Speaking of busy, Matt Moore, I know you are extremely busy this time of year, doing all of the various things that I just listed. And yet you reached out to me. And again, we talk every once in a while because I consider you a buddy in this line of work. And you said you wanted to yell and scream and be mad on an episode of Locked On Grizzlies. And I said I was going to do the trade deadline primer solo, but the floor is yours, Matt Moore. We've talked about the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade the last couple of shows, but it's always good to get a national perspective on what the Grizzlies are doing.
I'm in a bunch of places. I'm in a glass box of emotion because I'm glad that they did the right thing by Jaren. Hey, we're pivoting from this era. We're moving on. Let's not get you stuck here. Let's get you somewhere where you can have an opportunity. And that opportunity is in Salt Lake City, Utah. But they actually will have like a really fun team next year with Keontae George, and probably Darren Peterson, maybe, and Jaren and Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, who's like the perfect big to put next to him in the games that he's available. It's great. It's absolutely terrific. As Jaren, his game matures and continues to develop, and he gets finally some actual appreciation from the officials, and they treat him like the defensive player of the year that he is, and 3-time all defense player that he is. He's gonna have a great career, and it's awesome to see him. And he'll get to play for a great coach who will actually work to maximize what he does and care about actually playing to the strengths of the roster that he was given, and not some insane concept that worked in Germany in 2021 or something. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Very happy for Jaren. The answer to this that I've heard from you guys on the show and read from everybody in Memphis is like the explanation is like, look, Ja caused all this. Ja wasn't the same. And so when Ja fell off, you got to pivot when your best player can't do it. So they had to make the painful decision to pivot. And my problem is this whole thing was caused by decisions the front office made. Like, I am going to do it, and I'm sorry. He's a great player. He's going to be great for you guys. It's great. They draft Zach Edey, and they say, this is going to be the difference maker. It's this guy. Like, listen to how they talked about him. Then they hire 2 assistants to work under Taylor, who by November, I was getting scouts saying, we don't really know what Taylor does there. Like, we don't know what Taylor does anymore because the assistants are in charge of everything, who are hired by the front office. And no one was happy with it. No one liked it. And the same person that was in charge They don't like it in Miami either. They don't like doing it that way. So then they fire Taylor because they're underperforming under the system he didn't choose. And one of the reasons it was talked about at the time, it was reported like, oh, they were upset with the fact that this system did not do enough for Ja Morant in the pick and roll. But what I heard was Zach Edey wasn't playing enough and not getting enough opportunities. Okay. So then they move on to Asalo, and and what does he do? We have this entire thing with Ja. I'm not denying that Ja is injury prone, has problems off court, has an attitude issue, and his jumper hasn't come around. The athleticism is diminished because of the injuries. What I will say is he's not Darius Garland, who has a toe injury that keeps messing up. If it was that, I'd be like, oh man, that's probably going to go sideways. He has like random stuff. He has random stuff. And so we're at this point where Jaren, who did so much for this franchise, and I was hard on him early because I was like, you have got to find go-to moves offensively, because otherwise you're just going to be like a guy out there. You're not going to rebound. You better have some sort of offense. And he did that. He developed, and he took responsibility, and he played when they asked him to, and he was everything that you want. And now, like, you sent him off for some picks that are probably not going to be that great. I like Taylor Hendricks. And it's just, this whole thing didn't have to go like this. Like, this didn't have to go like this, Mullinax.
Yeah, I'm not disputing anything you just said. And I do think there's plenty of blame to go around. I just struggle. It's hard to invest in someone who isn't there, right? And you hear it all the time that availability is the greatest ability. And when Ja, whether it was the suspension or the shoulder, I've heard lots of people talk about how the jumper hasn't been right since that. I'm really hesitant to put all of it on Zach Kleiman and all of it on coaching changes and those sorts of things. I think it's a perfect storm of crap, if that makes sense. They went in with a star in Ja Morant, the one and true star in the history of the franchise, and it didn't work. And in the NBA, as you know, you cover the NBA at large far better than me. In the NBA, if you have a really, really, really good player that's a big-time star, they can cover up a lot of the bad things. And when that star is not there, the bad things shine through more clearly. And I think that is what happened in Memphis, and that's what led to the end of an era that's supposed to be pretty fun. It sounds like you like Taylor Hendricks. Walter Clayton Jr., I've heard from a couple of folks, that was a big get for the Grizzlies. How do you feel about this return now that it's happened and we've been able to vent and we're angry that Jaren's been moved on? I understand completely, because it definitely is going to be a what if in Memphis Grizzlies history, this entire era of Grizzlies basketball. How do you feel about what they got for Jaren?
Fine. Like, Clayton's got some game. I think there's upside to him, and like, he might turn out great. What I don't ever want to do is I don't ever want to make definitive statements in the positive or negative about young guys, because I'm just like, man, your careers can go, it can be vastly different.
Memphis Grizzlies fans know that all too well.
If you're looking for some real sicko tape, Joe, go chase down Taylor Hendricks in preseason, because that's the one that I was like, hey, Taylor Hendricks might like chump this year. And then the Jazz got into there, and like, it's hard to judge any of these guys because the Jazz have very specifically and tactically spoiled their season on purpose. Like, they have done the mechanisms needed to keep their pick, which is top 8 protected, to OKC. So like, you just can't really evaluate what they're going to do. I am less pick heavy than I think a lot of analysts. I think what OKC did was really smart, because they just built redundancy upon redundancy upon redundancy. And they did get J-Dub from the stuff that they traded. But like, Chet was their own pick, and Shea they got in the trade. Like, that's their core, right? Case and Wallace, I believe, was their own pick. Like, that was their own. So it's like, I don't know that all of the picks, like, honestly, you saw today, Presti's just like chucking some at Philadelphia to get Jared McCain because he can afford it. He's just like, sure. Like, he's got the ability to make these kind of marginal moves for a guy that was great for 2 weeks in October and then spent this league in the G League, or this year in the G League. So it's, it's nice. I'm just not bowled away by what these picks are going to be. Everyone's like, ooh, that 2031 Phoenix pick. And I'm like, Jordan Knott's a really, really good coach. What if Jordan Knott makes it? Most coaches don't make it that long, but what if Jordan Knott makes it? What if Jordan Knott's like a really great coach? Like, Booker's probably still going to be there. Like, if you get the 17th pick in 2031 and you can move up with another pick and move into the top 10 range, cool. Are you getting a player that's as good as Jaren Jackson Jr? No, you're not, right? Forget about Ja. You're just not getting. Now, once you went down this entire road and you made the decisions, you had to trade Jaren. So it's not like I wanted them to keep him. I'm just not enthused by, if you're going to do this, I they couldn't, because they sabotage their own value. Like Jaren's value went down this year. Like everyone's talking about, like, man, Jaren Jackson sucks now. And it's like, I'm sitting there screaming into the void, he's out! Like, I just, it is disappointing to me that you have a 2-time All-Star, 3-time All-Defense, former Defensive Player of the Year. And you got Walter Clayton Jr. and Taylor Hendricks and some picks that might be okay, hopefully. I'm just kind of like, cool, I guess, neat. That's kind of my reaction to it.
Hey, I think it sounds like a C to me. It sounds like you're grading it out to a C. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think I'm in the same kind of space, not necessarily as bad. I'm giving it a B. Could have been better. I think that you're exactly right in terms of, again, if he wasn't alone, which comes back to the previous point about Ja Morant kind of being the point of emphasis here. If you had him with Ja the way it was supposed to be, maybe we're in a different place. But obviously things went off the rails a long time ago.
I want to ask you, do you feel like Jaren today thinks he's in a better or worse situation for his career?
I think he probably sees it as a lateral move. I think the contract extension was really important to him. He got that. I'm sure he will miss Memphis. He was one of the guys that legitimately, and that's one of the things about drafting in a market like Memphis. When they come to Memphis and that's all they know professionally, you know, these guys make tens of millions of dollars. Ja Morant bought a house in Miami, and we'll segue into that here next. You know, that was before any of this trade stuff really came out, right? Like, they can live wherever they want in the offseason. But, you know, if you love Memphis, Memphis will love you. I know that, you know, not quite as firsthand as pro athletes do, but I felt it in my time there, and it's the reason I still do what I do. Jaren felt that love. And, you know, even though he was not the best rebounder, and that was something that frustrated folks to the very end, I think he misses that, but I do think he sees this as a chance. The Grizzlies are clearly on a downward trajectory now. Like, they've made that choice, whereas Utah is on the up and up. Hit up Matt at HP Basketball if you want to, but he might yell at you, just a heads up. Hit me up at Joe Mullinax. Let us know what you're thinking. Obviously, the YouTube comments are great as well. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we are talking Ja Morant trade returns. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who you can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move, because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need, and it saves you time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute or so I've been talking to you, companies like yours could make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by the good folks over at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. It's a huge time saver, allowing you to go about your day, giving you real peace of mind, knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Go and check them out now. right, Matt, we're transitioning from Jaren Jackson Jr. to Ja Morant, the former face of the franchise, the former potential future of American basketball, all the different ways that you want to view him going back to the 2022 glory days. We're not there anymore. The cost has significantly gone down for Ja Morant. Maybe we can get some of your thoughts on that. And it sounds like the two most likely landing spots for Ja are Sacramento and Miami. Let's make a prediction here, starting with you. Do you see Ja Morant getting traded? And if so, where is he heading off to?
Probably Miami. That seems the most likely thing for Terry Rozier's under indictment contract.
Very important to point out, as people yell at me online when I bring up that deal, Terry Rozier is almost certainly never going to play basketball in the NBA again, right? Never. These are all alleged allegations and all those sorts of things, but highly likely Rozier's career is done. You are trading for that contract, not for the player.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what else they'll include in it. Like, it's not going to be anything good. It'll just be whatever random stuff is lying around.
Would Simone Fadachenko's expiring contract count in that?
Yeah, it's Fontecchio. That's it.
Fontecchio, excuse me.
So that'll be it, and then he'll be in Miami, and that'll be that. I think there was a report that just came out from Kelly Eco that Ja's disinterested in playing for the Kings. I don't know the Kings care, because if the Grizzlies decide they'd rather have LaVine, I think that the Kings probably take the risk. It's just better to have the retradability, because it's so hard to move LaVine. You get a one chance to move LaVine before he activates his player option. And so, but that'll be the kind of the question is, like, he takes the player option. Do you want the expiring for Zach LaVine, or do you want to take the risk on Ja? And that's kind of the thing that the Kings are trying to decide. And those are kind of your options here. But I've been under the belief for about a month and a half that the Grizzlies are going to get nothing for Ja. They're going to get absolutely nothing because of the size of the contract, the CBA as it currently stands, and where Ja's esteem lands both on court and off court around the league.
And I do think that makes it different from the Trae Young trade as well, right? And that's important to point out. We talk about Trae Young's contract not being as long, but at the same time, even though Ja is under contract for the next 2 years, that's not necessarily a glowing endorsement, right? We have to keep in mind that the flashes the Grizzlies fans see of Ja Morant, and it takes them back to those glory days of several years ago. That is not how the NBA perceives him, whether it's fairly or unfairly. Ja has been very much not in any trouble, really. The only suspension he's had is from the team itself in terms of not interacting well with the coach. But in terms of the stuff that folks like to point out as, guns and all that, that hasn't been a thing since that second suspension. It's the baggage that comes with Ja Morant, the perception of Ja Morant nationally. It's almost like that's a tax on any trade that the Grizzlies would make, not to mention the fact that he hasn't played 7 consecutive games in 3 seasons.
Yeah, the other thing is just like the perception around the league, and this, I don't know if this is fair or not. Like, I'm not talking about this. I am not validating this view. I am sharing what the view of people that operate, that provide personnel evaluators with intelligence, what they believe. And the belief is that Ja has not changed at all, that he is still the same person he was in 22, that he is, if anything, more defiant, that he is anything more disruptive. And so there's like very little confidence in him making the kind of choices that he needs to make in order to show that he's like mature and a leader and has put aside both, I think, the behavior and the people around him to feel like you can have confidence in him. Like, there has not been like he messed around for a couple of years, but he straightened out. Like, that's not how people feel about him. And I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'm not in Memphis. So Michael can answer that a lot better than I can. And you can answer that a lot better than I can. But I think that impacts the way that he's viewed, because it's like, you're looking at it and is he going to play? Maybe not all the time. Well, how is he going to play? Well, not lately. Okay. But is he like a rock solid locker room guy? Can't say that. And that's how you get to Terry Rozier and Simone Fontecchio.
Do the Grizzlies get anything else beyond that? Is it literally just a true salary dump of those 2 contracts? Do you see a young prospect? Do you see a protected first-round pick, a second-round pick if Miami had it? If I'm in agreement with you, I think Miami's the most likely destination, because I see Giannis going to Golden State. Maybe you disagree with that if he doesn't stay in Milwaukee. But if Ja is the consolation prize and it's on the cheap, can the Grizzlies get anything else out of Miami?
If they get a second round pick, I will be impressed. If they get a first round pick, I'll be very impressed. They will have done a great job. If they get a second round pick or a first round pick, they will have done a absolutely terrific job. If they get any young prospect, Kings might send Devin Carter. They really want to move him. They really don't want to move Devin Carter. So you might be able to get that. Like that's like at least a player that you could get. I would be very surprised about Yakachonis. I would be very surprised. I would be shocked beyond belief if it's any of the Heat guys that they think are good. So there's just not a lot of guys on Sacramento or Miami that are even like reasonable. Like you're not getting, it's not like it's like, oh, they got Keegan Murray. Like, that's not, no. So yeah, it's not great. Not great, Joe.
How the mighty have fallen. And to your point about Ja's perception and whether or not he's actually changed, DeMichael would absolutely know better than me because he's on the ground there in Memphis. I think that the idea is if he hasn't changed, he's gotten a lot better at covering his tracks, if that makes sense, in terms of, maybe not as reckless with how he behaves or acts. But obviously those in the know would know a little bit better. And again, that's speculation. All I can go off of is he hasn't gotten in trouble for the things that were troublemaking for him, whether he's changed how he interacts around those spaces or whether he's just not doing those things anymore. Again, the market is the market and perception oftentimes is reality. Again, Matt Moore at HP Basketball. Hit him up there. Hit me up at Joe Mullinax. How are you feeling about our prediction? I share it with Matt. Ja going to the Miami Heat. We're going to close out this episode of the show talking about other Grizzlies that might be on their way out. Santi Aldama, Ty Jerome, which one might be more likely, that sort of thing. Before we get there, I know that Matt has talked about the Everydayer Club over for Locked On Nuggets. The NBA trade deadline obviously is here, hence the point of this show. We want to give out a free month for the new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Grizzlies fans, plus national chats where you can interact with folks like Matt, myself, hang out with fans from around the league. You also get ad-free versions of this show, and if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can use the code DEADLINE to get your first month free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more about the Everydayer Club. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. It is the last call for football here on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everybody has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you are a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football over on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Matt, I do some contributing over at On SI for the Grizzlies now, and I wrote about other Grizzlies that potentially could get traded after the Ja Morant deal. Santi Aldama stands out to me as somebody, if you look at the structure of the roster moving forward, obviously newly re-signed, but so was Jaren Jackson Jr., having a good offensive season in particular in terms of how he's scoring the ball, 6'11" combo forward that can do a lot of different things with the ball in his hands. He has value. You've heard rumblings and reports of folks poking around, seeing what could be out there for Santi. I gave the idea of Santi Aldama and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for Jeremy Sochan, Harrison Barnes, and Kelly Olynyk. Just kind of 3 expiring deals, continuing to try to build up as much cap space to take on dead money, bad money, however it's phrased, to get better draft capital or future draft capital from the Spurs. Obviously, San Antonio, one of the better teams in the Western Conference, maybe trying to accelerate their own process a little bit, building up their bench, especially with Aldama. Do you see Santi Aldama in particular? Doesn't necessarily need to be anybody else like a KCP. That would be an add-in to make salary work. But Aldama is probably the best player remaining for the Grizzlies in terms of trade value. Do you think they pull the trigger on something like that, or do they keep Santi at least through the end of the season?
I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I know the teams have called about Santi, including the Phoenix Suns. I mean, I think they should liquidate. You can't be like, well, we got to hold on to his trade value. Well, you destroyed Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant's trade value, so you might as well go ahead and clear out the house. Like, what does it matter? Like, you've killed all the trade value. No one has trade value.
What does it matter?
I'm serious. Like, what does it matter?
Vision. Oh man,
who is going to look better under this system with this season, except for Cedric and if Zach comes back? Like, who's gonna be like, who's playing really well? Like, Vince actually was playing pretty well. He's gone. Threw him in as a sweetener to that deal. I do think that the idea of moving him to Phoenix is probably a pretty good idea. Phoenix doesn't have the draft capital, but you could, I don't know, maybe try and target some of the younger guys, right? Or you've got certain guys on there that are on cheaper deals. Maybe you can move in a veteran that you can reship this summer. That would not be a bad idea. I don't know if they're willing to move Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen, but those are two deals that like 3 years left. Okay, so 2 years after this one, that's a good target range to be able to move those guys. But I would absolutely be trying to ship out everything that is not nailed down under 23 needs to go. You can rebuild your veterans to have around to kind of set the table and, be the voice in the locker room. You can do that over the summer and next season, but I would be deliberately trying to absolutely liquidate everything.
Do you even include Ty Jerome in that, who has literally played 2 games for the Memphis Grizzlies, but has looked pretty darn impressive in those 2 games?
Everybody wants a backup guard. Everybody. So yeah, I would absolutely I would call up Houston and be like, hey, you got a really good player at a position in need. What are you willing to give up? I would absolutely be trying to move on from Ty Jerome. He's 28. There's no reason to keep him here. There's no reason. You brought him on to try and compete for the playoffs, and that blew up. And he won't gain value, I don't think, on this team. So you're not as concerned about like the veteran presence, right? Because a lot of people talk about that veteran presence. You're saying that can be obtained this offseason, whether it's free agency, whether it's another trade around the draft. In the here and now, you're just saying everything must go. Everything must go. You can rebuild that. You can find veterans this summer that are looking for a full-time position, and you can clear enough cap space to be able to afford them and be able to be like, hey, we'll pay a little bit more. We just want you to come in and help the young guys. And there'll be enough vets that you can do that. Having Slow-Mo around again, I think actually does help that if they keep him. That's not a bad veteran to have. But yeah, I mean, look, I think like Brandon Clark, gotta go. KCP, gotta go. There's no reason you want, and especially because it's like you do have the older guys around to try and teach them how to be professionals. And I think that they had that this season. So most of the guys that are on the roster had that experience, and need to get some guys for next season. You shouldn't go into next year with all young guys. You should definitely get some guys, but for right now, I would be trying to just desperately try and peel up as much value as you can possibly get. Second rounders, young guys that had that were hyped going into the draft and have potential. Pretty much anything. I would just be trying to move everything off the books.
Do you think they actually achieve that goal or part of that goal? I mean, if Ja Morant is the priority to move on from that, which is understandable, is there enough time, enough interest? Are they able to do a full fire sale, or do you think it might just be a Santi? How far do you think this actually goes?
I mean, I think it's always it's a stages thing. So they'll probably hold on to the rest of the core through tomorrow after they dump Ja. And then after that, in the summer that the draft, you trade Aldama, you try and find someone who's one of the problems is that the expiring contracts have less value now because free agency's dead. So I would feel pressure to move KCP before you get to the summer when it's a $21 million expiring. That's tough unless KCP is willing to agree to a buyout with another team. You might land something there, but that I think is a little bit concerning. Brandon's got 2 more years at 12.5, same kind of deal. I would be active until the deadline, but I'm not sure that you're going to find it. Given how many deals have already happened and where the money is and everything, I'm not sure that there's enough value out there outside of Aldama. I think Aldama could definitely get moved. I think he's got enough people around the league that like him.
Get you out of here on this. Lots of rumors about Giannis and the Grizzlies being willing to be that third team to help facilitate, Jakob Poeltl and that sort of stuff. Are they willing to take on that contract for future first? How do you see the Giannis stuff playing out, and do the Grizzlies get involved in that mix?
I mean, I think they definitely can be that third team that takes on assets, and that's great. That's what you should do, is you should take on money. Once you clear out enough, you take on money to pick up assets. That's what you should do. The problem I just think is don't have backup plans in case the Bucks pull away from the table tomorrow at noon, which is, I think, pretty likely that they're just going to be like, thanks for all your offers. We'll see you guys this summer. That's the smart thing to do, is to just wait. And their offers are only going to get better. This is not Nico Harrison running the Bucks. If they trade Giannis, it's because Giannis walks into the office tonight and is like, hey, I'm ready to move on. Let's go ahead and get this done. And they'll be like, all right, we'll take the best offer, and they'll oblige him. But don't get caught waiting for the Bucks. But if they are willing to involve them, then absolutely take on literally anything, as long as it gets you a draft pick, because that's what you're doing, is you're just banking on how great this team has been at drafting. And they've been great at drafting. So get all the draft picks and draft all the good players, and then it'll be great.
Look at that. A little bit of positivity to end this trade deadline primer on. I appreciate that, Matt Moore. I know that was hard.
I need a drink, Joe. I need a really stiff drink.
Well, we're almost done. I appreciate you, Matt Moore, at HP Basketball. Anything you guys are doing over at Locked On Nuggets or in your neck of the woods that you want to hype before we close out here?
If you want to hear me yell more, I was on Locked On NBA today, just going absolutely off about this entire process. So you can go check out that. It's a great show every day, Monday through Friday in the afternoon. We are doing a trade deadline show both before and after the deadline, so you can check that out tomorrow. I got 2 Substacks, Hardwood Paroxysm. I'll have a reaction, my full thoughts on the Jaren trade, as well as, again, how Memphis made mistakes in my mind, as well as reaction around the league as well at my Substack you can find on my Twitter page.
Thank you for refraining from cursing. I could tell in that face. We're a family-friendly podcast. I appreciate that. It's been a rough couple of days, and I have a feeling it's going to get harder for Memphis Grizzlies fans. Shout out to Matt. Again, big fan of his, at HP Basketball. Like, subscribe, all that stuff to everything he does. And make sure that you are hanging out with us, everything that we do here at Locked On Grizzlies. Our next episode, DeMichael is planning on getting a post-Sacramento Kings episode of the podcast. I am old and washed, as I often say, and I will not. I am 39 years old today, so I am not staying up for that basketball game. I will be in bed asleep. So you can go ahead, by all means, and check out DeMichael's episode if he's able to get to it. If not, I'm sure as trades happen and that sort of stuff, we'll have other shows to talk Locked On Grizzlies fun with. Make sure you're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on X at Joe Mullinax. Follow DeMichael Cole, my co-host, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. They're on the ground in Sacramento with the team, and then obviously heading to Portland after that at DeMichael C. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Grizzlies ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to this link, lockedongrizzlies.supercast.com. That is lockedongrizzlies.supercast.com to get started. From here, we send you to the first of its kind 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you're making your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA, as Matt was just shouting out. Thanks so much for being with us on this trade deadline primer edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you to Matt. Most importantly, thanks to you for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.
I'm so mad and sad.